Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon Provan, we get to jump into the wonderful world of Major League Soccer, a league that we are very big fans of. You with your Portland Timbers, me with my New England Revolution, and now we get an opportunity to head to the East Coast, to the District of Columbia, to the hallowed halls of DC United. And now we get a chance to speak with goalkeeper Andrew Dykstra of DC United here on Two Up Front. Andrew, good afternoon and welcome to Two Up Front.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Well, you are welcome. Andrew, we got to ask immediately, how are you doing with the injury? How's recovery going? Are you feeling any better? Are we going to see you on the field anytime soon?
Yeah, injury's coming along. It was pretty unfortunate timing, when Hamid had taken on his injury. But we were in LA, slipped a disc in my back, and didn't really set in until the 5-hour plane ride, which doesn't help anybody with a back issue.
No, not at all.
So got it taken care of. The surgeons are pretty optimistic about my return. They think still got a couple more weeks of trying to get the strength and speed back and all that stuff. But probably a couple more weeks. In terms of play time and all that, that's kind of up to Benny. So we'll kind of cross that bridge once we get to that point.
Yeah, you mentioned the unfortunate timing about it too, because Bill had just gone down fairly recently, and then everybody was excited to see what you were capable of doing, and then as you mentioned, the timing kind of worked the way it did, and it's kind of been, unfortunately, a little bit of the story of your career a little bit, though. You've been back and forth, in and out with different teams and different clubs, even within the league as a whole, too. Is this one of those things where you were just kind of sitting at home thinking about it, you're like, come on, like, give me one little break here, soccer gods?
Yeah. I mean, if you dwell on it and you keep thinking about it, which I definitely did a couple days before surgery, it drives you absolutely mental. But you got to kind of just put that stuff aside and focus on yourself. And the thing is, I'm not an injury-prone guy. I spent almost my entire professional career without an injury or surgery. Didn't miss a day, and then. There was the Achilles 2 years ago that came out of nowhere. Bounced back from that, got game time last year. Things were rolling, and then, this happened again. It was pretty unfortunate, but, like I said, I can't dwell on it, otherwise it just drives me crazy.
Yeah, actually, I look at it as a very positive thing, not that you're injured, Andrew, but, looking over your career, how you were undrafted, but you made your way into the Chicago Fire lineup. Mm-hmm. And you eventually made your way as the starting goalkeeper after they waived John Bush. And, we saw you play with Charleston Battery and then find yourself back up in the league again. So how do you keep pushing yourself through? I mean, it's a very positive thing that obviously you continue to play professionally. But, you're in the top league in the U.S. And then, as I said, you go down to USL Pro, but then you find your way back up to MLS. How do you do that as a fighter?
I think a lot of it is just good timing. I know that there's some folks that happens to, where they get bounced out of the league and they kind of, their head gets down or they just settle for where they're at. They just kind of accept what it is. And, for me, I was single at the time, which is great because, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that.
We understand.
I was
you
dating.
Didn't have any
I was
attachments.
dating. Yeah, exactly. I didn't have any. I wasn't married, I should say. I wasn't married.
There you go.
But you have the ability to kind of go where you need to go and do what you need to do. And my girlfriend Ben, who's now my wife, she's kind of like, get it done, and we'll kind of sort it out. Didn't have any kids. And my whole life has been athletics. I did swimming for a short time. I wrestled as a kid. I played football. Could have gone to college to play football as a wide receiver. Stuck with soccer, and I've always been an athlete. To have size, strength, and speed kind of always gives me a great base to push from. Because when you have those things, you can always then you focus on the skills. And when I went to Charleston, it was, I saw it as an opportunity. What can I do here that gets me back to the next level?
Sure,
and,
yep. Which is good to have that mentality, too.
Exactly. I mean, and the same thing was out of college. I came out and no one drafted me. I wasn't invited to the MLS Combine. I went to Europe to do some training just to kind of buy some time to see who might be interested in the States. I was doing it in Germany, and they kind of said to me, they're like, your feet aren't where they should be as a professional goalkeeper. So when I came back to Chicago, every single day after training was kicking with my left foot or, trapping balls or whatever it is. So, those days John Bush was playing my first year, I was working on my feet. So I'm always picking up, the bottom part of my game.
And he's a good guy to learn from too. Yeah,
exactly. And then, the same thing happened when I went to Charleston. I went to Charleston and I looked back and I said, these are probably things I could improve on or need to improve on. And I did. And then I was kind of lucky enough that in my off season with Charleston, I'm from Woodbridge, Virginia. My agent at the time had kind of said to them, Andrew's around if you need a training partner, and came in and they said, yeah, we want you back next year for a contract. So, worked out.
And it's interesting, the evolution of the goalkeeper. 20, 25 years ago, a goalkeeper with feet was a rarity. But now it's a necessity. 20 years ago, making a back pass to your goalkeeper was a nail-biting adventure in a game. But now, it's, as I said, it's a necessity.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what kind of, if you were to talk to young kids out there about being a goalkeeper and obviously working with your feet, what kind of things could they be doing as a goalkeeper? What kind of, are the exercises different working with goalkeepers' feet versus a field player?
I think so, because I'm very big on specificity. So, if you're a forward and you want to work on your feet, you should work on trapping balls that are, being in-swung, because you're typically going to see crosses. Or you should learn to trap and play with balls with your back to the goal or someone hanging off of you. For me as a goalkeeper, everything is in front of me. So you always see the field. You typically have a little bit more time on the ball than, say a midfielder or defender, stuff like that. So for me, it's kind of like, if you're going to have that time, you better make the right decision with the ball. So I would say to any youth, put yourself in the goal. Have your dad or your teammates or whoever it is hit it back from different angles. Have them challenge you by hitting, bouncers in and learning to trap it, play out the other way, play the same side. Try and mimic as much as you can what you would do in a game.
And I almost got to think that for those dads who actually can't play, who are thinking, I can't take shots on my son, I don't know how to shoot. That's actually the best kind of person to take a shot because they're totally unpredictable.
Go anywhere.
Yeah, no, I get it. I understand. I was there as a youth. My dad was he wrestled in college, so I wasn't getting any training from him.
Well, I have to ask you before we just switch gears here a little bit, Andrew. You were born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I'm a little curious about that to now where we find you in D.C. How in the world did you end up in Honolulu?
Dad is a Marine.
Oh,
he's a retired Marine colonel.
Wow.
So I was born in Hawaii. We lived in Okinawa, Japan for a short time. Went to Norfolk, Virginia, Southern California, and then I went to middle school and high school in Northern Virginia. He was either at Quantico or DC.
Wow. Okay.
Until he retired. Yeah.
Wow. Well, let me just say that it makes sense where your tenacity comes from, knowing your dad was a Marine. And at the risk of sounding trite, we do thank your father for his service to this country.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Was that something, since your father was so distinguished in the Marines at all, was that something that ever crossed your mind about a possible career path, or were you always hell-bent on wanting to play soccer?
It's funny you say that. When I was younger, I was actually, and I still kind of am, a huge American football fan. And
hey, we're from Wisconsin. We get it.
We're big Packers fans. Don't worry.
Yeah. And it might even sound stranger because my dad's from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Ah.
So we grew up watching. I grew up watching Barry Sanders on TV.
Sure.
Michigan football, Michigan State he had on. So I was always fascinated by football, and I always wanted to be, big, strong, fast, be a wide receiver, do all that stuff. And I was lucky to have the ability to do it in high school, but didn't really work out the way soccer would have that I predicted, and I was right, which was good. But sorry, I got off course.
No, that's all right. Well, I will say it's got to be kind of amazing that you grew up in Grand Rapids watching all this football. I'm sure both Michigan State and Michigan. And who would have thought that 20 years down the road you're watching Real Madrid and Manchester United play in the big house?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and I definitely there were people that I grew up with, or I knew in Camp Pendleton when we lived there, or I knew in Norfolk. And when I grow up, they find me on Facebook, and they're like, "Man, I thought you would have been a Marine."
Well, that's a good assumption, though. If they didn't know any better.
Yeah, I know. As a kid too, my dad is huge into American history.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so when we drove across country both times from California and then back, we visited every single battlefield and fort and. So my knowledge base with military history, especially with the U.S., is pretty good. And just having known everything and what I did, everybody says that. They go, I thought you would have been in the Marines. But I don't know. I mean, I was kind of a younger kid that had just a ton of energy. And when I finally told my parents, like, I want to get serious with soccer, they're like, more power to you. It keeps you busy and running out of your energy. And,
sure. They didn't realize the potential that you had at that time. They were just more concerned about you not being as obnoxious at home than as a little kid.
Yeah, pretty much exactly how it went.
Well, it's very.
And then,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, then a couple of years go by, and I was actually a forward until I was probably about 15 or 16.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I was kind of always the athlete on the team, and it kind of transferred nicely into goalkeeping, and it was just kind of like one opportunity fell in your lap after another, and then I just kind of seized it. So I went from just playing kick around to finding a travel team, and then it was like, oh, you're okay at this, and then I made the high school team. You're like, okay, you're all right, and then I said, I found out you could get scholarship money to play soccer, so I said, yeah, let's try for it.
Why not? Exactly.
Yeah, once that worked, I said, I think I have a realistic possibility of playing professionally, and I mean, not everybody, I'm sure there's a lot of great players that just don't have the opportunity or aren't given a chance, especially in the States. Like you got to kind of take a sacrifice, because when I started at Chicago, the old minimum league minimum was
it 12.5?
18 grand.
18, okay.
No, it had just jumped to 18, so I was like the last generation to see the poverty salary.
Yes, literally, yes.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of gotta, and there's not a lot of people that are willing to do that and to say, what, like, I'm gonna make the most of this, and they say, kind of forget about it. And there's other guys that they just don't get the invite, or they don't. I mean, I think every professional athlete, unless you're just an absolute superstar when you're a kid younger, you need a little bit of luck, or you need an opportunity.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah,
well, and
sure.
you even look at baseball players in minor league; they're not making tons of money either. No. But your father being a Marine and you being a professional soccer player, I guess it's only fitting that you end up with DC United playing in our nation's capital. And we're talking with Andrew Dykstra here on 2 Up Front Soccer. Let's focus in on DC United a little bit. We know you're injured. It's been a rough season so far, though, Andrew. And what are you guys doing to try to right this ship right now?
I don't think that there's a lot of distress in the locker room. People believe in what our abilities are, and fortunately, it's much better. It's leagues ahead of the 2013 season where we had, we only won a couple games.
Sure.
But it is nice to know what a team like that looks like, and then you look at your team now and you go, yeah, we had rough times, but we have good strings. We're playing well. You have good players. We got the right people in place. So, I can't speak for the coaching staff as to what changes they want to make, but I can say that they do have the players in the clubhouse to get the job done, and I think that that's kind of what a lot of people are counting on.
Do you think some of the issue maybe with the lack of wins right now has been because it's been kind of a rotating carousel of goalkeepers this year? I mean, goalkeepers at No, I don't think so. I know. I don't know how that could affect a field player's mentality. I know sometimes if you really have a goalkeeper that you do not trust, I'm sure that can weigh mentally on a group as a whole. But that being said, Travis came in, didn't make any mistakes. He was learning. He did his job. He did well. He came up with a couple saves to keep us in games. And then he just like I had my streaks the past couple of years. He did too. He kind of got acquainted with the group, and they got used to the way he plays, and it worked out. But Bill's heading back within the next couple of weeks, so which is great. He's a very special player, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I think that probably gives. I would assume that gives some players some motivation. There's just a little bit confidence, and maybe. I mean, I know that they change. There's more changeover in hockey with goalkeepers. with the ups and downs,
sure,
and they kind of change them in and out to spark a group. But this, maybe that could happen with us. I don't know.
Exactly. Hey, that's the beautiful thing about soccer is that anything can happen on any given day.
Exactly.
Well, Andrew, we really appreciate you taking the time today. Andrew Dykstra, the goalkeeper for DC United, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you back out on the field sometime soon. Andrew, good luck with the rest of your recovery, and we'll hope to have you back on the program again in the future.
Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, are welcome. Andrew. We're going to run to a break. When we come back, we've got more in store for you here on Two Up Front. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com.